Dr. Sean O'Mara says that if you've been trying to lose weight for a long time, but your belly fat still won't go away, you may be fighting the wrong type of fat. In his view, the real problem is often visceral fat, the fat that builds up around your organs inside the abdominal cavity. This type of fat can slow down your metabolism and trigger chronic inflammation, making weight loss much more difficult.
Visceral fat is this inflammatory collection of fat that is a disease process. I'll just set the record straight. This is not something your body makes might make the organs or tissue or skin or hair. Visceral fat is disease inside your body. It produces all this inflammatory molecules that are getting spewed out 24 hours a day, every day, causing inflammation and disease in other parts of your body. So this sort of like spreads its influence and its effect on you. And so the last thing I'll say about it at the outset is nothing, Rena, is more important to help a human being improve their health and improve their quality of life than getting rid of visceral fat.
Research shows that one of the main enemies of visceral fat is fermented foods. Dr. O'Mara explains that when you regularly include fermented foods in your diet, you diversify the microbiome in your gut. Beneficial bacteria not only help restore a healthy, efficient metabolism, but also strengthen the intestinal barrier, preventing inflammatory proteins from entering the bloodstream. Dr. O'Mara believes that many doctors today underestimate the role of the gut barrier in weight loss. Yet improving its function can reduce insulin resistance, making it much easier for the body to lose excess fat.
So what is really predicated in terms of the outcome is your level of microbiome. And this is why people that are able to consume fruit and honey and some carbohydrates and not put on weight is because their microbiome permits them to do so.
You can amplify the benefits of fermented foods simply by pairing them with protein. Dr. O'Mara favors what he calls a living carnivore diet. In practice, that means building your meals around meat as the main dish, with fermented foods served as the side. In this combination, protein helps control appetite, which naturally reduces the number of meals you eat and extends your fasting windows. Protein also has a much higher thermic effect of food, meaning your body spends more energy digesting it and takes longer to break it down. These effects are supported by research as well. One study involving older men showed that the group consuming higher amounts of protein in their diet experienced a noticeable reduction in visceral fat.
Eating that meat with fermented foods. So you want to have what I call living foods. So I coined the term living carnivore diet. You can't just eat meat. Why? Because our ancestors hunted animals that were live. They had that hide. They drank water that had microbes in it that didn't have chlorine. And so they were always exposed to these living organisms that were just part of it. And so today's carnivore community, they're just wrong for that aspect. They're just eating sterile meat without these microbes. So fermented foods, probiotic foods, bring these living organisms that are aligned to making us more healthy. And so you got to eat meat and you got to eat these microbes. Meat and microbes, the living carnivore diet.
Along with protein, fermented dairy products can also be paired with metabolic boosters, such as coffee or green tea. Dr. O'Mara believes that combining coffee with unsweetened fermented cream or cultured dairy can stimulate metabolism while also helping ease insulin resistance. Coffee contains not only caffeine, but also chlorogenic acids, plant compounds that studies associate with healthier glucose metabolism, improved insulin sensitivity, and reduced fat accumulation. This is particularly important when it comes to visceral fat, because that type of fat is closely linked to insulin resistance, a condition in which the body more easily stores fat around the organs.
4 to 5 cups a day, ideally paired with 2 to 3 cups of green tea, without sugar being added to it. And it looks like the polyphenolic compounds are what are causing the benefit, and they appear to be enhanced when they're consumed with protein. So it might mean that you should be
consuming your coffee with some protein. My favorite pairing to do with that right now is kefir. So I drink some kefir in advance of my coffee. So when it goes down there, I got some kefir in there to pair with that coffee. And sometimes I drink it with heavy cream, which has protein in it and a lot of fat and less carbohydrates. And so that can be beneficial, I think, sometimes too.
Of course, getting rid of visceral fat completely also requires physical activity. But Dr. O'Mara warns that you need to approach exercise carefully. Many people choose workouts that are far too intense and end up pushing their bodies into a state of stress. The problem is that visceral fat, just like belly fat, contains a large number of cortisol receptors. Because of this, stress can actually become one of the main drivers behind the accumulation of visceral and belly fat.
Too much exercise. When it comes to exercise, there's a Goldilocks principle. If you exercise too much, you're sort of like, slaves, like from the Old Testament, Egyptian slaves, the Egyptian taskmasters, Pharaoh and stuff, working them to death. Well, that's not healthy. You want a certain amount of exercise and not too much. There's that Goldilocks.
That's why the most effective approach for reducing visceral fat is a comfortable exercise routine, one designed to activate the body's metabolically active muscles without pushing the body into stress. One example Dr. O'Mara often recommends is sprint swimming.
A good exercise to do is maybe sprint swim. It's not as mechanically challenging, to do sprint swimming in a pool until you start getting your condition improved, start eliminating your visceral fat.
Sauna can also be considered a form of physical intervention. According to Sean O'Mara, repeated heat exposure can improve the metabolic environment in which visceral fat typically accumulates. Regular heat exposure also enhances blood flow and vascular function. As a result, it may reduce hypoxia, meaning the lack of oxygen in enlarged fat tissue, which itself fuels inflammation and encourages further accumulation of problematic fat. In other words, a sauna may not directly burn belly fat, but it can make the body less inclined to store visceral fat in the first place.
Going into a sauna, because it improves your nitric oxide production, your production of heat shock proteins. And so about 15 to 20 minutes, about 175 degrees is what I recommend in a dry finish sauna, not an infrared. I go more natural and make recommendations for just the heat instead of the infrared, which I'm concerned is just too deep penetrating. Mm-hmm. We don't have protection. We're evolved to get an infrared from the sun, but that's much shorter wavelengths. So dry finish sauna.
Most importantly, once you deal with visceral fat, you won't just lose weight and reduce belly fat. You'll also improve your overall health by eliminating one of the body's most common sources of chronic inflammation. And that matters because weight loss should not only be effective, but healthy as well.